Hello, everyone. So today I am joined by three guests from the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have Miss Zoha, Miss Maddona, and Hamid Reza. And the three of them are going to talk to us about the recent election that they had in Iran. They had a presidential election. A new president was elected. There's been a lot said about it in American mainstream media that has been pretty deceptive and dishonest. And I think it's best to get a description of events from the ground, from people who are actually in Iran. So I'm going to give all three of our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. Then I'll begin asking questions, and I'll let them speak. And if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat, feel free to put a question in the chat. We will give priority to super chat questions, but we'll also ask other questions. And this is just an opportunity for us to hear from people in Iran about their own election. So first, I guess Ms. Zoha, you can introduce yourself.
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. I am Zoha, and I am a very small journalist in Iran, and a little activist, media activist too.
Very good. Thank you. And Ms. Maddona, can you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Maddona, and I'm international and media activist in Iran, and now I'm here and in this conference, and thank you, Mr. Maupin, for holding this program.
Very good. And Hamid Reza, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. In the name of God, and good morning or good evening based on the location everyone is. And my name is Hamid Gholamzadeh. I am we can say a journalist now, a freelance one. I have been working for some 20 years on politics, especially international relations and foreign policy of Iran. And I usually appear on some media outlets to talk about the foreign policy of Iran and give some analysis on that and the international issues and such things. And I'm doing my studies as a PhD candidate in American studies. So I hope that we're going to have a good discussion today.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, the first thing I guess I want to say is that in U.S. media, we have just been constantly told that this election that just took place in Iran was not a real election, that it was not democratic, and that Iran is not a democracy. Iran is a dictatorship, an authoritarian regime. Well, I've been to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and I've been there a number of times, and I can tell you that that is absolutely not the case. The Iranian people are heavily involved in their system. There's the Basij councils. There's a huge amount of involvement from the population. But what would the three of you, one by one, have to say to Americans or others who have been led to believe that Iran is not democratic? I guess we'll start with Hamid Reza.
Usually ladies first.
Oh, okay.
So if ladies want to go first.
Okay, very good. Good. I guess Ms. Zoha first, and then Ms. Maddona, and then Hamid.
Okay. At the first of my speeches, I would like to begin by referring to the genocide of Native Canadians. I want to express my condolences to the indigenous people of Canada. This brutal killing of child in a country which speaks all the time about freedom and human rights is very upsetting. Now maybe all the world should understand about what is happening for Yemen, what is happening in Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq, what is occurring and what is happening for their child. What is American military doing in the West Asia area? About the democracy of in Iran, I should refer to the American election. Um, I think it is not true that there is no democracy in Iran, and in some of the American media, we have heard that it was a low participation in the Iran's election. I think it is not true either. You see, the country's top officials met with the president-elect and the defeated candidates in Iran congratulated the winner. And it was a very good occurrence that took place just in Iran. Compare this with the US election fiasco. Um, in spite of Iran, in the US elections, people have no role. If a person read Howard Fast's novel, The American, he realizes what elections mean in America, in the US. Those who do not have the slightest role in elections are the people, those who come to the polls and vote. The president who currently holded the office said that this is one of the most rigged elections in US history. Who said? The one who was holding office with the election being conducted during his presidency. The rival candidate said in response that Trump was aiming for widespread fraud in the election. This is American democracy. But Iran's recent elections were truly an epic created by people.
All right, very good. I guess Ms. Maddona can answer the question next, and then we'll go to Hamid Reza.
In the name of Allah, at the first of, in the beginning of the program, I want to say about a memory in 1988 about a passenger plane, an Airbus 655. Um, this this plane was crashed and attacked by a Vincent warship. And 2 days ago, the anniversary of these people, 290 people, innocent people, killed and martyred in this event. And I wasn't on that time, but um, every year when I remember this event, I became very, very sad because 66 children were in it, and their life destroyed by American um, human rights. But I said the previous session about American governments and people between these are different. When I say about American, that means your governments, your evil governments, not people. I know, and we know, American people are separate from their governments, and this is a truth. Okay, first, I want to say about democracy that's in Iran. Um, I don't know any political systems in the world that uh, has been subjected to as many predictions about its destruction or eradication and overthrow as Islamic Republic. Since the first day when Islamic Republic was formed, um, all enemies and those people inside or outside the country who wouldn't say that uh, mm, Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran, becoming successful. And they said that um, um, this um, Islamic Republic wouldn't survive more than 2 months. And after that, they said Islamic Republic of Iran wouldn't survive more than 6 months and 1 year, and blah. And until now, and we see Iranian National and Islamic Republic of Iran uh, is survived. And 2 years ago, uh, John Bolton and John Bolton, John Bolton said about this, and he announced with confidence that uh, Islamic Republic never see 40th anniversary of Islamic Revolution, and this is this is a joke. This was a joke because we saw and you saw and all the people in the world saw it. And now we are in 42nd of anniversary of Islamic Republic of Iran. And I said about Islamic Republic last session as previous session, but now I want to say important points about this and about democracy. Um, what is the secret of um, success of Iran revolution? Uh, more revolution, um, most of revolution in the world uh, wasn't successful, and but Iran can, and it continues. Um, this is the answer of this is two words: uh, Islamic and Republic. Islamic means come from Islam, and Republic means people. And in Iran, uh, this slogan or this name that Islamic Republic of Iran related to uh, our Imam Khomeini. He was a great man, and he was a great leader, not just for Islam, not just for Iran, for seekers in over the world, and for people that love freedom, um, libertines, and if Iran um, could uh, to arrive in at this time and in at this age of um, success uh, for try and for um, try to Imam Khomeini. Okay, and two words: Islamic and Republic, and these are very important. In Iran, people are very important because we say Islamic Republic. Republic means people, and for example, um, the pattern of people in the world is important. For example, in Palestine issue, um, 75 years of um, past that Palestine uh, is in um, isn't free, and but in this year, in over the world, people in over the world uh, protested uh, from Zionist regime, and they call supports Palestine and Palestinian people. So some governments of countries um, um, disagree with this action and with this movement of people, but people did it, and it was very amazing. And this is power of people. When people unite together and have a same goal, they try and they um, do it. And we saw each person, not uh, essentially revolutionary or religiously, no, all the people protest and protested from these events. And they wanted to Palestine will be free. And this is an example of power of people. And in Iran, we have um, religious democracy, and this is this is very important that people uh, not just for like dolls. No, they are human and they have uh, duty and are responsible from their country. And for example, uh, I want to say statistics uh, between the people in Iran and in your country in USA. For example, in your country in USA, the cost of your government, I want to say about the role of your government, that um, how much look people and attention their people. Um, it was very, I don't like it, but I want to say uh, in USA, the cost of uh, eradicate poverty is $175 billion. Okay, please attention to it. And the cost of USA American government, uh, the cost of American government in Afghanistan is $4 trillion. So American governments, American governments um costed for killing, for uh, other things that not attention to their people. When American governments can eradicate poverty, eradicate poor in your city, in your country, in your um, life, why governments students and their cost and their money cost in other countries for kill? So attention to people is so important, and um, unfortunately, American governments didn't have, and they just uh, I say again that American governments are separate from their people, okay? And I respect you, and I know you are separate from your governments. So um, this is very sadly and very, very, very awful that uh, with this cause um, eradicate poverty is possible, was possible, but your governments didn't it. And pattern of people in Iran, I said, very important, like elections. Elections means that they cooperate people for future, their countries, and that means so important because I live in this country, and the future of this country is very important for me, for my family, for our friends, and for each people. So uh, this is not pleasant, unpleasant for our enemies, and you saw the most and I think um, um, very, very, very high propaganda uh, anti of elections for Iranian people, and they called more times about sanction of elections in satellite in networks in social medias, and they did a lot for this, but Iranian people came with um, power, and they participated in elections. And on that day, I was a reporter. And when you are a reporter, because you are between two people and you speak to people and take photo and videos, um, you see near um, people and actions. It was so amazing for me that women came, a lot of women, not just one or two, a lot of women came to elections with not a very um, um, hijab or like me. No, their hair, for example, opened and not just very religious. And when I asked question about that, why did you come to elections? Um, they answered, and they same answered, and it was so amazing for me. They first they say that yeah, we are in a hard situation from economic sanctions, and this is so hard situation, and because of um, that we are in elections and come to elections just for Ayatollah Sayyid Al Khamenei. And they said just for our leader. And it was so amazing for me, and very, very uh, amazing because their leader said that uh, exists in election is necessary for each people. They participated, and they never listened to propaganda and their enemies. And This is very important that people in Iran unite together and came to elections with high population, not just in Iran, in other countries, Iranian in abroad, uh, were very uh, wonderful. We saw that in Birmingham, England, or Canada, America, and other countries that Iranian wanted to participate in elections, but um, their government of this country or some people don't didn't allow, but they continued this way, and finally they voted. Thank you very much.
Very good. All right, Hamid Reza, go ahead and tell us your response to the question about
Sure.
democracy.
I first thank the ladies who talked about the general issues. I would like to go delve into actually into more details of the elections and the politics in Iran. 42 years ago, when the Islamic Republic actually happened, the revolution happened in Iran, they tried to introduce a new form of government and governance, which was neither the Western liberal democracy nor the Eastern communism and what we had in the Soviet Union at that time, representing that form of governance. So Iran tried to introduce a new system of governance, which was based on the Islamic teachings, and that was named Islamic Republic, as just Maddona mentioned that. So this method of governance was supposed to be based on the teachings, and Islamic teachings puts a lot of significance on people, and it is actually based on the people. We have a lot of narratives, we have a lot of teachings and verses in Quran, everything that says that people have a role to play in the society. It could be about the responsibilities and the duties that people can have. It could be about observing and monitoring the officials and each other to help each other to perform as good as they can. So that is the general idea of the Islamic Republic, which put much attention on people. That is the problem. The first problem appears here, that the Westerners try to interpret and understand the Islamic Republic through the lens of the liberal democracy, their own teachings. So they don't want to realize what the Islamic Republic says. They just want to compare that with whatever they have in their own country. While it doesn't seem to work like that. For example, let's discuss about the Electoral College. When the founding fathers in the United States decided to have the Electoral College as the system for democracy and election in the United States, it was mainly because of not allowing the common people to have such a direct role in shaping the government and shaping the officials. So it was actually we can say designed to prevent people from having a direct vote and direct voice in the politics of the society, because they believe that people are not eligible or are not, let's say, wise enough to decide about the politics and the future of the government. But it is not so. You cannot decide about with that mindset about the other countries, be it the Europeans, which are mainly liberal democracy countries, or the Islamic Republic, or any other country. Every political structure needs to satisfy the people of that country that it is being implemented there. So in Iran, and the basic idea of democracy, generally speaking about the term, is to have people rule the country directly or indirectly and have some say actually in the decision-making procedures of the country and the governance. So when it comes to Iran, we need to pay attention to that part. We have had many elections, 13 presidential elections, 11 parliamentary elections, 6 or 7 city council elections, and we have had some assembly of experts elections. We have had, I guess, if you sum it up, it would be an average of one election every year for last 4 decades that we have had since the revolution. So it is the way that the policy is working, So people are supposed to have some say, and they have actually casted their votes for the referendum to choose the Islamic Republic at the very beginning of the revolution, and after that we have had several elections, as I said. So people are playing their role. The next thing that is the Westerners say and claim against Iranian elections is that it is rigged. It is why the Guardian Council vets the candidates and such things. So that is a certain other issues that I would get to them later. But the point is that if democracy is translated into having the demography, the people have some say, it is happening in Iran. Unlike many other countries in the region, of course, which happen to be allies to the United States or the Western countries, like, for example, Saudi Arabia, like the UAE, Bahrain, I don't know, many other countries that we have in this region, which have had no or just a handful of elections for decades since they have actually appeared to be a country. So first of all, so first problem was that the Westerners are not understanding what the Islamic Republic is saying, or let's say they don't want to understand actually what the Islamic Republic says and what the mindset is and what the philosophy of the politics is in the Islamic Republic. The second problem is the double standards that they have. So they face Iran, they criticize Iran for holding elections, saying that your elections are not good, or you don't have democracy and such things as you just mentioned. And at the same time, they are supporting regimes in this region or some other places in the world who don't have any elections, who don't have any form of democracy. Or they topple some governments who are actually elected democratically. We had it in 1950s in Iran. They staged a coup against Mossadegh, who was democratically elected prime minister at that time. We have seen coups in Latin America, a lot of them. We have seen color revolutions, velvet revolutions, such orange revolution, and such things in like Georgia or Ukraine and such countries north of Iran, in the former Soviet countries, we can say. So this double standard is the second problem that they have. But let's get to the details of the elections. One of the things that, as I said, they don't want to understand, of course, but anyway, we are here to explain it to the distinguished listeners that have joined us in this live program. One of them is the vetting system, which is based on the Guardian Council. So Guardian Council is something, if I want to compare it to the United States, I can say it's something similar to the Supreme Court, who has the final say in matching everything, every law with the Constitution. So it is the body that is responsible for that. I know how the Supreme Court members are elected. In Iran, it is like that. There are 12 members in the Guardian Council. 6 of them are jurisprudents, and 6 of them are lawyers. So the jurisprudents, which are actually experts in Islamic studies, are introduced by the supreme leader, which himself is a jurisprudent. So this half of the body, the 6 people, are responsible for the religious aspects of the regulations, legislations, and everything that we have in Iran. The other 6 members are introduced by the government to the parliament, and they are approved at the parliament, which both of them are actually elected directly by the people's vote. So the parliament approves those 6 lawyers, and they go to the parliament. The supreme leader, even, who picks those 6 religious figures, he is actually selected and picked by the assembly of experts, which is directly voted by the people. So assembly of experts is chosen by popular vote, direct popular vote, and they pick someone as the leader. The leader introduces 6 religious figures to the Guardian Council, and we have 6 other lawyers, legal experts, who are picked approved actually by the parliament, which is again voted directly by the people. So this body is responsible for checking and matching everything with the constitution. When it comes to the runners for any elections, except for one, which is the city councils and local councils, every other elections, the candidates are actually vetted or approved by the Guardian Council. So here comes one of the claims that the Americans and Westerners say against Iran and against the elections in Iran. They say that it is some sort of, let's say, dictatorship, I don't know, a rig and engineering and such thing, that you disapprove some people. First of all, when we are talking about the elections, the presidential elections, the Guardian Council is responsible for, besides checking everything with the parliament, with the constitution, that the nominees, the candidates, need to believe in the Islamic Republic and such things. They should not have, for example, criminal records and such things. They need actually to make sure that that person is ready and fitting to be the president, to run an executive branch. We all know that the executive branch is the let's say most energy consuming position in any politics, and every executive forces, executive duties is placed there. So it needs someone who is actually powerful, who is energetic, and who is wise enough to decide about the situation and to plan for everything, to be able to handle several issues at the same time and such things. So these are things that the Guardian Council needs to make sure about that. So there might be some people who are very good people, who are very capable of many other things, who are well-known politicians, who have had many other positions in the country, but yet they are actually disapproved by the Guardian Council because they have realized that he cannot run the executive branch of power. It doesn't mean that he is a bad person or he is incapable of being a politician in Iran. No, it means that for that particular position, he is not fitting.
Okay. I think we want to give, we're about 40 minutes in almost. I think we want to give more concise answers to the questions. That way, sure, it can be more of a conversation rather than speeches. I think that would be a good way to do it and make it a little bit more lively. I guess we'll go around one more time on this issue. You talked about the Guardian Council. I just wanted to say really quickly that, in the United States, we have a Guardian Council, right? We're always told that Iran's elections are not democratic because they have this Guardian Council that approves and disapproves the candidates. In the United States, we have a Guardian Council, and it's called the corporations and the big banks and the wealthy people. And they decide for us which candidates are allowed to be taken seriously as real candidates and which are not. And they pick, a Trump, Biden, Kamala Harris. They pick them. And there are other candidates, but they're not taken seriously. And they don't get ballot access. They don't, in many cases, they don't get any publicity in the media. And our Guardian Council in the United States is not a group of people that have led a revolution and are dedicated to the principles of what the country stands for. Our Guardian Council are just the people with the money who just happen to have the money, and they rule. Whereas in Iran, you do have this Guardian Council that makes sure that candidates are in line with the revolutionary ideology and all that, but it's honest. and it's straightforward, and it's people who are leaders of the revolution, people that are committed to your Islamic Republic and your system. And there's a level of honesty there, and that true democracy emerges with economic development. And then that as long as you have a society divided into classes, you're never going to have a real democracy. Real democracy emerges as we get beyond poverty and divisions in society. But I guess I wanted to have, if you both, and I guess Miss Maddona, if she's able to return, can both speak to real quick this issue of the Guardian Council, and then I want to talk specifically about the new president and such. So why don't Hamid Reza, why don't you just address any more thoughts on the Guardian Council, and you, Miss Zoha, please concise answers if possible, and then we'll go on to talk about the winner of the election. Sound good?
Sure.
Yeah? All right.
I was actually going to talk about the Guardian Council system in the United States, as you just mentioned. I remember in the recent election, in the primary actual elections in the Democratic Party, when it came to the final rounds of the debates in the Democratic Party, they just suddenly changed the criteria to marginalize, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, who was, we can say, was someone, a different voice from the mainstream politicians in the Democratic Party. As you just mentioned, people like, for example, Dr. Jill Stein and the other parties, and not the two ones, are those who are actually sidelined by the regulations and everything that is based on the money. So as the famous quote that traces the money in American politics works here, it is actually the Guardian Council. You need to pay money, you need to raise money, you need to have money, and everything in the election in the United States is money, actually. So by that, they have actually disqualified some people from running. And we just know what happened not only in the 2020, but also in 2016 in the Democratic Party. What happened to Bernie Sanders, and how they actually put him aside and brought Hillary Clinton as the final runner in the Democratic Party. So that is actually, as you said, the dishonest way of politicizing in the American politics by the two main parties. Of course, I have a lot of respect for the other parties who are working, we can say, healthfully, and they have a healthy politics in their practices, as far as I can understand from the performance. But when it comes to the two parties, it is, as I said, the money speaks, and at the end of the day, what appears on the ballot papers is the name of just two candidates. So the structure, the politics in the United States is putting a binary choice in front of the people to choose between them. So that democracy is to choose one of these things, of only these two things, actually. But at least in Iran, first of all, it is honest. It is saying that what the criteria is, and those electors, those guardian councils are known people. Everyone can know them, and it's not just vetting by or disqualifying people by a political agenda or some financial interest in such things. So that is the main difference, which I can say that it is not correct about the Guardian Council.
All right, Miss Zoha, do you want to make some brief remarks about the Guardian Council and the role that it plays and how we are deceived about it in the United States? You are muted. You need to unmute. I can't hear you. You are muted.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was speaking about my teacher, in which he was speaking about the Islamic policy in about money and getting more in liberal policies. He was speaking about this, that Islam has a main and very complete policy about gaining money. Islam said that you may pay one part of I don't know. you may pay a part of your money which is not working for your country. You may pay it for some poor people. You may mm, you may pay your a part of your money for poor people uh, to reduce the um, to make some rich people maybe some amounts of rich people may pay to poor people. It is the Islam policy, but it is not happened in the world. I mean, in the liberal policy too. Uh, what is accepted in the Islamic policy and what is accepted now in the world is that 20% of 80% of money is in the hands of 20% of people. And this is the meaning of Islamic policy for money. That if you pay one part of, if your money is totally 5 parts, you may pay one part of it to poor people. Um, this will be this will be worked in all the world. This will be played in all the world, and it will save the liberal policy of for money. Uh, that's it.
Okay, very good. And very quickly, Ms. Maddona, if you can also touch on the Guardian Council and how the American media says that this proves Iran is not democratic. What's the reality of the Guardian Council? Very quickly.
Yeah. Mr. Dr. Hamid Gholamzadeh said very completely, and Zoya too. But just I want to say about that some people and maybe in propaganda that said um, Guardian Council in Iran chosen some people that's just special people, and for this election, um, not mm, confirm other like Mr. Ahmadinejad or other person. But this is reality, and this is very clear that each country has rules for um, their politicians and for other issues. And in Iran, we have rules and for elections. And uh, in this population, in this uh, group, that Guardian Council make decision that which person has qualified to become president or not, and they are not, and they choose not privately. That means not um, mm, um, privately. That means for their opinion. No, um, these are rules, Islamic and Republic. I said, and this is very clear that they um, this and they qualify some people and they disqualify others. But disqualify, that means not just not accept, and for example this person didn't have any qualify to become president. maybe these are two um, happen that for disqualified. For example, one of the um, person that name is was then the name was Mr. Said Mohammed. He's revolutionary. He was revolutionary, and um, he was very good there in his position, but he disqualified. He disqualified and didn't accept to continue for candidates. Uh, he is he was a good person, but for presidents not. That when we say disqualify, uh, it has there is some factors to know that who is the best person who is can become president. But for example, he isn't. Um, he has good factors and good points, but not just for presidents. It is important that, for example, Mr. Said Mohammed was like this. Um, he was good, but for president, Guardian Council um, didn't accept him for candidates. So we must to respect the regard of Guardian Council, and I think they did a smart and very uh, good for these elections and the um, previous and last and all the times, and they are very brave, and their decision is so essential and vital for the future of country. And because um, the, the next president will choose from these candidates that they um, choose it. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Now I want to move the conversation on to the election results because you have a new president who's been elected. Rouhani will be leaving office, and your new president will be coming in. And U.S. media has been telling us that your new president in Iran is a terrorist. He's an extremist. He's going to start wars. We should all be very afraid of him. So I want you, starting with Hamid Reza and then Ms. Zoha and then Ms. Maddona, to just quickly tell us who the winner of the election is and who he really is, as opposed to what American media is telling us.
So the president-elect is the winner of the election is Mr. Raisi, Ibrahim Raisi, who was actually the head of the judiciary before being the president-elect. And before that, he was actually the person responsible for the Holy Shrine of Imam Reza in city of Mashhad. And for the last 4 decades, he has had some positions in the judiciary. So basically, he's a man of law and justice. And he has been sanctioned by the United States. There is one sanction imposed against him, and that is because of, if I'm not wrong, the role that he had in the executions a little after the about a decade after the revolution. The story was that I'm going to say it very shortly. The story was that there were some people inside the prison. The inmates belonged to the MKO, Mujahideen Khalq organization, a terrorist group in Iran. The dissidents that are now mainly in France and Albania, and you might have seen John Bolton, Rudy Giuliani, and such faces appearing in the annual conferences in Paris. So they were actually trying to stage a coup from inside and outside the prison, and there was some plans and plots that they wanted to have some armed conflicts, and the outsiders wanted to raid into the prison and the insiders, the inmates, were supposed to actually help them, and there was actually going to be an armed conflict against the Islamic Republic, and because of that, they were sent into the trial, and the treason and the riot was actually sentenced to death, and that was actually the job of Mr. Raisi at that time, sentencing those prisoners, those terrorist people to death, something that is any common sense would approve right now, let alone at that time that we have had a decade of terrorism acts by them. I remember we were living in an alley where a person who used to sell vegetables, he was actually killed by those people just because of wearing beards, and because of that they had interpreted that he is revolutionary, he is a religious person, and they had killed him, a common person who was just a vegetable seller. And there are a lot of such cases, is examples of the terrorism that they had actually carried out in Iran. If I'm not wrong about the figures, it is 17,000 people killed by this group. So when we are talking about those executions, we're talking about execution of terrorist people through a legal procedure, which was exactly based on the law. So that was actually the longest story short. It was about that they say that he is a justice of death and such things. So all the claims that is against him is because he has acted revolutionary, and he is adhering, he's loyal to his country. So we are not going to have a brutal dictator in Iran. We are not going to have a president who is totally against the relations with the world. He is, of course, someone who is not going to an easy person for the West, who is not going to be very open in giving up to the excessive demands that the Americans or Europeans are making against Iran. But he is going to be some revolutionary face in the presidential office.
Well, I just want to cut in before we go on and we get our answer from Ms. Maddona and Ms. Zoha about this issue. You know, the Mujahideen Khalq is a terrorist organization. I mean, they have murdered a number of Iranians, and they've even murdered Americans. There's a number of Americans that they have killed. And, you know, this is a bizarre cult. They claim that their leader is the reincarnation of Jesus and Vladimir Lenin combined to bring chaos and destruction around the world. And the fact that they are supported by the American government, that so many U.S. government officials work with them, is just utterly disgusting. They blew up the Iranian parliament in the early 1980s and killed members of the Iranian parliament. They have assassinated people. They worked with Saddam Hussein. He airdropped them into Iran, and they destroyed whole villages. These are vicious murderers, this Mujahideen Khalq organization. They're vicious murderers and terrorists. And the fact that our media here in the United States calls them democratic activists is ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They don't believe in democracy. They're murderers. You read the Human Rights Watch reports about them and how they torture people. And so the fact that you know, when Iran is defending itself from this vicious terrorist group that murders scientists and murders civilians, the fact that the current president sentenced a number of them to death when Iran is fighting for its life against these terrorists, that doesn't make him a bad person, right? How would we respond if there were terrorist groups being airdropped into the United States, burning whole villages, blowing up, you know, the U.S. Capitol, doing horrendous things like that? We would respond and defend our country just the same way. So I don't think these claims that somehow the current president-elect of Iran is a bad person for defending his country from these terrorists. I don't think those claims just don't stand up. And seeing the U.S. media make these claims is just horrendous. But he's much more than that. Let's be real. I mean, he's, you know, your president-elect is much more than just a judge who sentenced some terrorists to death. He is much more than that. So why don't Ms. Zoha, you go ahead and tell us more about who your president-elect is, then Ms. Maddona, and then we'll have a couple more questions. Sound good? Very good. Go ahead. Tell us more about who he is.
Yes. You know, after Mr. Gholamzadeh's speeches about the 67 decades, 67 year. I mean, in Iran, in which he was very um, he was very, I think, very kid man. I think you saw that in Iran's television in when candidates were speaking that Mr. Raisi was very politely get silent and don't answer impolitely attacks to him. I think those what happened in that day and that years was the result of media waves, negative media waves against him. And those negative media waves against Mr. Raisi was due to that we had lost him for 4 years, for past 4 years. Um, while he had we had lots of he had lots of plays. He should work some. He had he could work a lot in these 4 years, in these past 4 years, and we lost it. So I think he has more political programs, more most effective economic programs too, and we really hope him to do something for our people. I mean, he may save our people from economic problems, from I should say political problems, and that's it.
All right, and Miss Maddona, do you want to tell us just quickly about who he is? Who is your new president-elect?
Mr. Said Ibrahim Raisi, now he's the new president of Iran, and in his in his in the past, and that he worked in the past, and he showed that he is so brave, and he um he fight to economic corruption, and he's serious and decisive in his decision. And so this is very good points to him. And he is an Iranian that he saved our values. And I think not just for the past, for now, uh, I think he people when people trust to him, that votes to him, and now he chosen by people, um, his responsibility is so more than the past. And one of the positive points that he acted, and he did it, and we never see this action in uh, this last times. Um, After the winner that he chosen by people, he invited other candidates to a party that they um, tell to him recommends and suggestions for our future of country. And this is very this was very good and very good points from him. And I'm so optimistic for future of Iran by um, this new president, Mr. Said Ibrahim Raisi, because he, when he speaks, and when he speaks, not just speak, he do it, and he does it, and because we we saw um, in the past, and he improved that he doesn't just speak, he do it, he does it, and I think when presidents promise something, he must to do do it for people, because people trusted to him, and
Yeah.
that's it. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So we do have someone who sent a super chat question. They asked, do folks agree that the current election was a defeat for the neoliberal agenda in Iran as agents of imperialist influence in Iran, and look forward to the new president-elect to move away from that agenda? So why don't all three of you give a quick answer to Mr. Zarieh, his question here. And I think then we can probably conclude, because we've been going for almost an hour, well over an hour now. So why don't we get a quick answer to this question? Who wants to go first and answer the question? I'll leave it on the screen so you can see it. Go ahead, Ms. Zoha. You want to answer the question first?
I think Mr. Gholamzadeh may answer this question.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Yes, the short answer is yes. It was a no to the neoliberalism in Iran, because the current administration, Mr. Rouhani's cabinet, is representing those people, and it is representing the, let's say, Western-like mindset of politics in Iran, which those who believe in liberalism, who believe that they can actually, what we call them reformists in Iranian politics. But those who didn't vote actually and didn't turn out in this election were the supporters of him, who actually had voted for him in the last two elections 4 and 8 years ago. And they saw incapability and incompetence of that mindset, that point of view in politics. And they have suffered a lot in economy and in many other things, and they are facing the difficulties of that way of management and that way of politicizing everything, and they have given up with that. So people, those who supported the neoliberalism and reformist camp, were so dissatisfied with that performance that they did not actually go to the ballot boxes to cast any vote to them. So we had a nearly 50% turnout in this election. We had some, based on the surveys and polls, we had some 10% of people not going to the ballot boxes because of the COVID problem. And from those who turned out, from those, let's say, half of people who voted, majority of them, a high majority of them, voted for Mr. Raisi and other principalist candidates. This shows that those who were actually, let's say, supporting this principalist, or they call it revolutionary mindset, they were still adhering to their ideals and their values. But those who were actually supporting the reformist values, who were supporting the Western-like values, like, for example, calling for equality, freedom, such things, at the top of the agenda. It doesn't mean that the others are not pursuing such things. It means that they prioritize these values over any other things. So those people realized that they were wrong, realized that having relationships with the United States is not the most important thing in the world, and it's not something that can improve the economy, can help the country, just to have relationships with the United States. And we all know about the story of the JCPOA. I'm not going to get into that. So when they do not come to the ballot box, it shows that they are dissatisfied with their performance and they are not believing in that anymore. On the other side, the other point is that the reformists did not introduce a new face who can actually at least put some hope for their supporters that maybe this new face can do something different from those other ones in the past. And all the runners or the candidates either approved or disapproved by the Guardian Council. I'm not just talking about the two figures who were approved by the Guardian Council. Even the others who registered and were disapproved by the Guardian Council, none of them were new faces, powerful faces who can satisfy the supporters of that camp. So that is the situation with them. This election was a big no to neoliberalism and to the reformist camp in Iranian election.
Very good. Do you want to answer the question as well, Ms. Maddona?
I think Mr. Dr. Gholamzadeh said completely.
All right. Very good. I do want to make just one comment, which is that that one side of this story that is being ignored is that Rouhani, the reformist president, he came into office, and I mean, I saw this when I was in Iran. His whole talking point was he was going to get in there and he was going to negotiate with the United States, and it would fix Iran's economy and it would make everything better. And I talked to a lot of Iranians who believed this, who were very they believed that, hey, you know, Ahmadinejad, the president before him, was too radical, but Rouhani is going to come in and he's going to negotiate with America, and the economy is going to get better, and the United States and Iran will get closer, and it's going to be great. And what happened? The JCPOA was betrayed by the United States. You know, Trump destroyed the JCPOA. New sanctions were put on Iran. And then Iran's top general, Qasem Soleimani, was murdered ruthlessly by the United States. So, you know, the Iranians tried to negotiate with the United States, tried to move in a way that would, you know, that would improve relations. But then as a result, they were betrayed. So should we be surprised that Iran has now elected a candidate who's much more critical of the United States and much more in line with the anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist values of the Islamic Republic? We should not be surprised. And the fact that our media in the United States, you know, is making this a scandal that the Iranian people went to the polls and picked someone who's less trusting of the United States. Look what happened. I'm sorry, Iran opened up the hand of friendship. Iran, you know, gave up a huge amount of its peaceful nuclear energy program, and the United States stabbed them in the back. So I don't think we should be surprised that hardliners, you know, the hardliners or principalists, as they're called in Iran, have been successful. I don't think we should be surprised by that at all. I guess we will wrap up. I don't know what's happened to our other two guests. I guess they stepped out. But Hamid Reza, you want to make some closing remarks before we conclude the panel?
I guess the ladies have faced some difficulties with with the internet.
Okay.
You know, some wrap up could be the claims that the Westerners have against Iran, and it is. I saw something in the comments as well. That people in Iran don't dare to speak against the regime and such things. You know, that is the problem with with their mindset. There is something in academia, we call it post-truth politics. In post-truth era, which is actually called from the 2016 onward, it says that, it discusses that the problem with the people is that they cannot really believe anything that against their beliefs. They cannot. They do not want actually to accept things that challenges their own beliefs. So that is the problem with them. The mainstream media have depicted Iran and demonized Iran and the Islamic system as something brutal, a dictatorship. You cannot say anything about that, such things. And when there are people saying the truth, telling the truth, if it is not against the structure, against the Islamic Republic, it is doomed to be interpreted as something under the dictatorship, under pressure, and those people are not free to say, explain, express themselves and such things. So it is not like that. That is the problem. If we want to seek the truth and we want to understand the reality of the things on the ground, it would be better to actually follow the truth, to be open to the truth, and try to not, let's say, judge people by our cliches and things that we have in our own minds in the past. So it would be better to listen to the logics of the speeches, logics of the words that are said by the people. So that's because of that. In response to them, in general, and a wrap up, I would say that uh, Iran is one of the most, the freest countries I can see in the world, and I have been to many countries, dozens of countries, and I have worked in media in Iran and with media in many other countries, including North America, Canada, the United States, or other countries, from East China to West the United States. I've worked with many media outlets. I've written for them, and I have faced actually censorship in the American media several times, and I haven't seen that things in Iran. So if we are open to the truth, I would say that it's not like that if we are supporting the Islamic Republic, it means that we are forced to do that. We are brainwashed, as someone mentioned here. No, it is, it is our understanding, and we are trying to discuss that with others. It doesn't mean that everything that we say and everything that the Islamic Republic does is perfectly correct. No, no one claims that. Even the leader of the Islamic Republic says that we might have some problems, and we admit that. So it doesn't mean that the Islamic Republic is a perfect model of governance. No, it is an effort, an attempt to reach an ideal form of governance, which admits that it has its own fallacies, it has its own failures, and but it is doing its best. So that we are actually defending, and we are supporting that mindset, that the logics behind that. We admit, we also criticize some problems, as we are just doing. We just mentioned criticism for President Rouhani. He is the president of the Islamic Republic. We are criticizing him. He is in office right now, and if criticizing an official would be something faced with iron fist, that would be right now we could be arrested, and we are doing that many times. We are criticizing the government and many other officials openly in the public. As long as it is logical, it is okay. And if it is illogical, it would be actually bad everywhere, not only in the Islamic Republic, anywhere in the world.
Very good. Well, before we get to Miss Madonna for her closing remarks, I just want to say that, there are some people watching this who are probably going to say, okay, all right, you guys, you criticize the United States, you criticize the United States, but this is about the Iranian election. And just because the United States has problems, that doesn't make everything okay in Iran. Well, as you just said, Hamid Reza, everything is not okay in Iran. There are difficulties, there are problems, and that's one thing that in my trips to Iran, I found to be very refreshing to hear, is that the Iranians are very open about the difficulties that they have had and about the need for reform and improvement on various issues. But at the same time, you have to look at what the Islamic Republic is up against. Terrorists, drug gangs, the United States trying to crush their economy with sanctions, Israel threatening them with nuclear weapons and the threat of annihilation. And the Islamic Republic is fighting for its life. And they have created one of the safest countries in that region, probably the safest country in that region. They have built huge amounts of infrastructure. They've electrified the country. They've raised people out of poverty. The level of development in Iran is amazing. It is so modern in comparison to all these U.S.-aligned autocracies around the region. They have women who are generals in the military. They have a constitution and elections. It's the Islamic Republic of Iran. Meanwhile, it's the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's the kingdom of Jordan. It's the kingdom, the sultanates and such throughout the region. All the U.S. aligned regimes are straight up autocracies. They don't have any notion of democracy. In Iran, they have a democracy, but it is guided by their revolutionary leaders. It's guided by the supreme leader. It's guided by the Islamic Revolution. But the people do participate And the Islamic Republic wouldn't be in power for a day if it weren't for the mass support that it has. They have these things called Basij councils in every neighborhood that are the mobilized oppressed that carry out the goals of the revolution and the supreme leader on a local level. And there is a huge amount of involvement from the population in ruling Iran. And that's never told to us. We're presented with this image of Iran as if the people there are all oppressed and such. No, it's the people themselves that are carrying out the agenda of the supreme leader and the revolutionary movement there. I've seen that myself. So, Miss Maddona, do you want to make some closing remarks, and then we'll end our broadcast? Do you want to make some closing remarks?
Thank you. Excuse me, I disconnected some moments. Uh, Thank you for your comments and for your views. In Iran, like other countries, yeah, we have some problems, and but um Iran is different because all the world, antonym of my country, our country, and this is hard situation. Um for example, in sanctions or uh, in negative propaganda. But this is the happen that Iranian people become powerful uh, than past, and the progress in other in some fields like missiles, like medical. Iran is sixth countries in the world that can make vaccine, corona vaccine, and this is very wonderful because in this situation, in hard and harsh situation, we become success in this situation, and because just for two words, Islamic and Republic, both of them are important, and in countries that uh, claim that we are freedom, like French. We saw that in French elections, just 28% participated in elections, and but in that country they didn't have any antonym propaganda for participate elections. Um, Although in Iran, um, um, 50% of people participated, and some people and all our enemies said that no, it's not very biggest or great. This is very usual that, for example, when we guess that people just and participate at like 16 or 20%, now is 50 50, and it's not very important, but they knew that um, this is uh, deceivably response of Iranian people to them, and and sometimes they want to show less that this um, successful and victory of Iranian people. The main the main victory of elections are Iranian people, and I think this is the second revolution in Iran. This was a second revolution in Iran because uh, all the world wanted to uh, change our system, our regime, and but they always broke to this uh, uh, thing. And when they said that, okay, just 40 or 50% people participated in elections, and this is not very among and magnificent. Um, they said this, and I want to say that and ask question to them that okay, you said this, but why 50% did participate in it? When you see um, in this point and this view, um, you can just think that uh, Iranian people like their countries, like their futures, and like their Islamic Republic. And although and over and mm, especially people that mm, didn't participate in elections. I want to say about these people, um, when each person that and decision that um, didn't participate in elections, I wanted to say that they they aren't, they weren't people that antonym of system of Iran, and they just sat and for hard situation, not antonym of Republic, Islamic Republic, and especially for that the group of person that voted, but their voted not accepted because they wrote um, false and their voted not accepted. This person and this person too, they like their countries and they like um, their leader and future, and they came to um, elections. But for example, um one person that they like to were in elections, they weren't in it, and they wrote, for example, um, his name, and they voted false. Okay, just this, but they um, participated, and they confirmed that we accept their system and their Islamic Republic. But our enemies like show the vice versa of this, and I think uh, in this situation that um, all the areas around the Iran um, are not safe. Iran is safe house, and they and Iran never uh, interfere to other countries, but mm, in neighbors countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and because we believe Islamic religion, we must do necessary to them, and but not interfere in politicians, because and they are their rules, and they are their politicians, society and countries, and they never interfere. But this is our responsibility that we must to help people, and not just Muslims. No, um, each person in the world uh, become in the hard situation operation like Palestine or um, other person, we support them, and this is our responsibility as a Muslim. Thank you.
All right. Well, great. I want to thank first. I want to thank Ms. Maddona for reaching out to me and agreeing to arrange this panel and proposing it. And I want to thank. I also want to thank Mr. Hamid Reza and Ms. Zoha for joining our panel. And this was very important. I think it was very important for Americans to hear these views. And I'm really glad to give a platform to Iranians to tell their side of the story. Because most Iranians support the Islamic Republic. Most Iranians are proud of their revolution. Most Iranians are very glad that they drove imperialism out of their country and have been able to raise so many people out of poverty. I really, really appreciate the Iranian guests coming on here, because the United States is responsible for the death of many, 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 many Iranians. And the fact that you would come and be so friendly and be so open and engage with people from the United States in such a friendly way is deeply, deeply meaningful, because the history between our two countries is so bad. So the fact that you would be so friendly and kind to come and just express your views here is deeply, deeply meaningful, and it means a great deal. And my hope is that the American people, the working people of the United States who are losing their jobs and losing their homes, watching the infrastructure of the country fall apart, my hope is that they will realize that their enemy is not in Iran. Their enemy is not in Iran. Their enemy is not in Venezuela. Their enemy is not in Cuba. Their enemy is not in Russia or China. The enemy of the American people is on Wall Street. It is in the Pentagon. It is the billionaires and the bankers and the capitalists and the ruling class of the United States who are the enemy of America's working families. And the future for the American working class is to join arm in arm with our friends in Iran and in many countries around the world to struggle against imperialism, the system of imperialism, where a few big banks and corporations dominate the world and drive people into poverty, keeping people poor and fomenting wars so that they can stay wealthy. The threat against Iran, the threats coming from Israel, the threats coming from different countries, this is all about serving the imperialist system. And my hope is that someday the people of the United States, we can break free from imperialism and begin on a course of win-win cooperation and friendship with the people of the world. That is my hope. So I really want to thank our Iranian guests for doing this panel. I really want to urge the people of the United States to look deeper into the facts about Iran and not be deceived and not buy into the propaganda we get in our media. We have such biased propaganda in our media. They lie to us all the time. I've been to Iran. I've seen how much they've achieved as a country that's broken free from imperialism. They call their system not capitalism, but Islam. And they very much work hard to make sure that people are empowered and involved in decision-making. So I really want to thank our Iranian guests. And on that note, I want to end our broadcast. So thank you, everyone, for watching. It's been fun. And I'll probably be back streaming later tonight. So if you watch this and you have a question, be sure to hit me up later. I'll probably later this evening be doing a YouTube broadcast. So be sure to tune in for our lives and discussions. And let's thank our Iranian guests once again. So thank you very much. And
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting the program, and we're Iranian dress. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, with nostalgia phone. Thank you. And Ms. Zoha messaged to me that apologize for you and other because her internet disconnected.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
for watching, and goodbye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Talk to you soon.